What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network. He is Andrew Destin. I am Noah Hiles. The Pittsburgh Pirates season in 2024 is finally complete, Andrew. It was a fitting end. It was the last game to conclude on Sunday, the scheduled final day of the regular season. I know the Mets and the Braves play 2 games tomorrow. It ran longer than everyone else because this season really did drag on. It ended with the bullpen blowing another game, as has been the case many times this year. And it ended with them going 76-86, their exact record from a year ago. Andrew, we're not going to waste anyone's time and recap a quite frankly meaningless game for both teams here. It played in the Bronx here Sunday night. I think it's better just to talk about the season. Entering this year, the expectations were higher than last year, but the result was the same. So let's just go through the areas of the team, maybe the strengths, the weaknesses. I don't know how we didn't really script this one out, to be frank. We're just going to kind of talk about the season, what went wrong, what went right. Let's start with the good. Where did this team get better?
I think Derek Shelton put it well and put it correctly. You know, we asked about it post-game about ways that the Pirates got better, maybe didn't improve enough. And one thing that, he said tangibly the Pirates did get better was starting pitching. And I think it's hard to dispute that.
Right.
I think we can have a lot of conversations about myriad other issues, whether that's hitting, defense, bullpen, etc.
Right.
But the starting pitching, I would say, whether that's just by virtue of the guys who are here or the guys who were already here and showed improvement, right? Paul Skenes burst onto the scene. Jared Jones, when he was healthy, was good. Bailey Falter showed progress. Luis Ortiz was certainly a success story. So I would tangibly say the starting pitching is a way that they got better. How about you?
No, I would agree. I would say that that's hands down where they got better. I mean, and you mentioned it. They got better through acquisitions. Paul Skenes and Jared Jones coming up, they got better by adding those guys. Those were 2 of the best players that were not on last year's team, and they were notably better. They made this team better. The guys that they had around last year, Luis Ortiz, Bailey Falter, they were better this year. Mitch Keller, I would argue, same, maybe a little worse. Overall, I think we kind of know what Mitch Keller is right now. I think there's obviously still room to grow with him, and maybe that book's not closed. The starting and organizationally, the farm system got better. The depth got better. You go into 2025 with this team. That was the big offseason topic last year was we need pitching, gotta add pitching. They don't need to really spend a dime on starting pitching this offseason. They've got enough. But they got worse in some areas, Andrew. They got worse on the bases. They got worse in the field. They got worse in the bullpen. They got worse at the plate, really. So I'll pass it back over to you. Where do you want to take over from here?
I would say the most surprising of those developments, and the place that I would go is defense. That really caught me for a spin. Because, let's look at it on paper. When you were putting the team together back in the offseason, going into spring training, going into the season opener, you thought on paper they should have some clear, not just solid defensive players, but some real strengths.
Difference makers.
Right?
Yeah.
Michael A. Taylor up the middle and center. Bryan Hayes at third. Bryan Reynolds in left was not expected to be nearly this bad in left field. Jack Suwinski was not expected to make that big of a step back. Taylor lived up to his billing in center, but couldn't hit worth a dime.
And then if I told you they would have acquired IKF at the deadline, you would have thought that, oh man, they're going to even be better defensively. Right?
Incredible. Just never really manifested that way. And I think the biggest development on that front, which if you guys haven't checked it out already, Noah and I's story on Bryan Hayes with the back issues he's dealt with this year, we really explore that in great detail. But I think that's a great place to start with just that his defensive contributions when healthy, quote unquote, this year or playing, relatively non-existent. He was a league average defender. So I think the defense taking a massive step back this year was a big shocker for me.
Yeah, to me, it was just you go into a season when you're in a position like the Pirates are, ideally in the tail end of a rebuild, and you have these guys where it's like, all right, time to step up. And if you go down that list, it's hard to find many people who did that aren't starting pitchers, right? Henry Davis was a guy that, if we could go back and watch the pregame show we did, me, you, and Jason, I think I picked him to be the MVP of the team this year. He was quite literally the opposite. probably the biggest disappointment on the team. Jack Suwinski, after hitting 46 home runs in his first 2 seasons in the big leagues, ended the year in AAA, and deservedly so. He hit beneath the Mendoza line. Bryan Hayes, the worst year of his professional career. Michael A. Taylor, disappointment. Rowdy Tellez, disappointment. I mean, you could go on and on. There weren't a lot of successes. I mean, Bryan Reynolds was better. Oneil Cruz was better, I guess. I mean, it's nothing really to compare it to. But sure. Oneil Cruz showed that, there's something to build off here.
Yeah, no, this was a good season for him, for sure.
But it's just, you look around, their biggest improvement, really their only internal development success was Nick Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Nick Gonzalez, and this isn't a slight at Nick, but Nick Gonzalez, with what he showed, that's not a guy that's going to change your organization. That's not the equivalent of, a game-changing talent like they have on the pitching side. And you need those on both sides if you're going to, complete this puzzle and compete. And right now they don't have that, it looks like. They have guys who can hit, but the guys that you hope they developed further, or the guys that you hoped would come in as a free agent and not be a world beater. We saw the money that Tellez and Taylor signed for, but you didn't even get the value for what you paid for. And that's the difference maker. You're bringing players in and they're becoming worse, and guys within your organization are not progressing. And when they go down to AAA and still tear the cover off the ball, Ji-Hwan Bae, great AAA player. Yep. Henry Davis, great AAA player. What are they doing up here? Jack Suwinski ended the year pretty strong in AAA. I don't think it would be a fair assumption to think that would translate based off of what we've seen. There's a lot of questions surrounding this team. So, Andrew, I ask you, what's this offseason look like? What changes? What's added? What's subtracted?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing you got to look at first has got to be changes to the coaching staff. And frankly, deeper than that, changes to the minor league structure. Whether that's hitting coaches at the minor league affiliates, whether that's, changes to the scouting department, whatever it may be, I think we're looking at some changes. And we're already seeing them take place, right? With some various hires that we've seen recently, changes, openings that have been created. So I fully anticipate those kind of changes and that kind of progress to take forth. I don't know to what degree, whether that's a complete overhaul at the major league level, whether that's the minor leagues included too. But I would say coaching changes in that regard would be a key place to start. But the second place to go to that with is you can't repeat the same kind of offseason. And I think that, we can extrapolate this conversation even further to what do you do with Bryan De La Cruz, a guy who is, arbitration eligible now. Is he a guy that you bring back? Is he one that you let walk away? I mean, that's a legitimate question that you and I probably wouldn't be thinking we'd be talking about when they acquired him. So I think there's a lot of changes to be made, a lot of conversations to be had, but the place that I start with is certainly on the coaching side.
I start with philosophical changes.
Yeah.
They are not evaluating things correctly. They're not. Their approach to the game right now is not effective. The way that they're teaching guys to go up there and hit is not working. I think they need to re-examine their dependency on rest. I think Mitch Keller was a better pitcher on 4 days rest as opposed to 5. And I think that when they got to the most, strenuous month of the season in August with only 3 days rest or 3 off days, you challenged a thin pitching rotation that's rest dependent. And I think it maybe made sense for this year, right? Mm-hmm. But next year you cannot do that. And you should have these guys stretched out enough where Skenes can have 190 to 200 innings and be okay, right? And Jared Jones can have 150, 160 innings and be okay. And Keller should go over 200. And all of these guys, they need to be more aggressive, I think. They need to be more aggressive with their pitching staff. They need to be more aggressive at the plate. They need to be more aggressive in free agency. This whole buying it, you could, sure, if you like to gamble, you can maybe hit big on a scratch off, but your odds are better by going to, the casino and placing a real bet, right?
Yeah.
It's better to, if you want to win $100, you could get the $1 scratch off ticket and try to get $100, or you could put $50 on black and see what happens, because there's never a guarantee in free agency or in a trade.
Yeah.
But when you bet with bigger money, the payout is more likely to be big. Sure, the risk is also a lot more of a blow than it is when a Rowdy Tellez doesn't work out. You only lost 3.1 mil and saved $200K. But
Right.
that's just how they go. I think they're just overall, there needs to be just a more aggressive approach across the board. Hire different people. One of the hires they've already made was a guy who was just here a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe an outside perspective would help. If changes are made to the staff, say they retain Shelton and let go of guys on the hitting staff, guys on the bullpen staff, don't just promote from within. Don't just hire someone that you used to work with in an old organization. Find someone who might bring a different point of view. They need to be aggressive and they need to be open to doing things a little differently. Because while there is talent here, if it continues to go the same way with just a different guy in the same role for the same price, this is never going to improve to the length that they would like it to. So, Andrew, your final thoughts here as we wrap it up.
Well, first and foremost, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it's been a heck of a season covering it with you, buddy.
It has been, yes.
Not to get all sappy on the podcast, but in all seriousness, though, I mean, I don't mean to temper expectations or nothing, but the reality is last year, the team might have overperformed a little bit. This season, I think we kind of saw them crater back a little bit towards the mean versus really over exceeding those expectations. But I would say next year, expectation for this team, it's got to be at least 500. You should be qualified.
It's got to be playoffs.
It's got to be at least that, right? That's the median, or that's the average. What you're looking at is it's got to be at least an 81-win team where you're flirting with 85 to 88 to maybe 90 wins. That should be the expectation. Because reality is, call this a mulligan year. That's kind of how I would look at it. You took steady progress last year. It plateaued a little bit this year. But all said and done, not a huge step back, but certainly not a step forward.
Thank you to my good pal and my beat partner, Andrew, for dealing with me through 162. Thank you to Jason Mackey for handing the keys over to this car and guiding us along the way. Thank you to our bosses for this opportunity. And most of all, thank you all for listening, for reading, for watching, for following along on social media. We really appreciate that you come to us for Pirates coverage. It means a lot, keeps us going when, the team's well out of it and we still have to show up to the ballpark. It's nice to know that people are going to still consume the content that we create. So thank you all very much. You can read more of our content at post-gazette.com. You can listen to everything our talented staff at the Post-Gazette has to say on this wonderful YouTube and podcast network. Check it all out. Hit subscribe. We'll have more stuff in the offseason. We'll talk to you then. He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.